News Nug! A few different strains of nugs here in the Sea Vault, but we'll get right to the stories. 2 weeks worth of cannabis-related news stories. You can always find the full links at facebook.com, instagram.com, and twitter.com/newsnug. Try and post one story every 24 hours or so for 5 days a week. The first story is coming from Washington State, where Seattle's chief attorney is saying that the people need to fight the tickets written by that officer on an anti-marijuana vendetta. If you got a ticket from this officer in the Seattle area, there was one officer they found, I think it was 80% of the marijuana-related tickets in that city were from this one officer, and he would even write notes spiting the city attorney on them because he didn't agree with the new law. It's pretty fucked up. So if you are one of those people that got a ticket, definitely fight it. The chief attorney is saying if you know someone that's gotten a ticket recently, look into it, see if they are one of the people that can go to court and say this isn't right. I was picked because this guy has a problem with the law, not because I was actually doing something wrong. It's pretty messed up. The next story is about Nimbin, and Nimbin, Australia caught on fire. It's a really small town. There were, I think, 3 shops, mainly the Rainbow Cafe and Bring a Bong Cafe, and I think some neighboring shops too, that just burnt. They burnt to the ground. They destroyed a whole generation of art. I want to say it was 30 to 40 years old, like in the 70s that a lot of the art on the wall was done. It was a beautiful area. This is in Australia. I had a chance to visit in May. I'm really, really thankful for the fact that I was there before this happened, because it was a place that brought me to tears. It loved marijuana so much. This place, honestly, Nimbin, Australia, is like a mecca and a heaven, and I still say that even after the fire. They definitely need love and support, and hopefully they can rebuild and make it a new generation of amazing cannabis support and just information and freedom. The next story is that Mark Emery is back in Canada with his wife Jody Emery. Mark has been serving 5 years in America. He then had to wait this weird extradition process where he was out of jail but not free to just walk into Canada by himself. He had to just wait in another cell and just chill. So Jody and him are back, reunited. They are on a media tour. They've been back at home. They've done a lot of press at a time where I feel like I would just want to run away and hide and be with my husband, but that's what they do. It's amazing. It's really inspiring. It's incredible. So I am in awe of what they're doing. I am thankful for the time that he's served. I do consider him a prisoner of the drug war, and now he's a veteran. He's come out of the other side of the prison, and it'll be really interesting to see the different moves they make in the next few years. They are a power couple and both really, really strong speakers and media and public influencers. So way to go, Team Emery. I just really want to see what you guys do. The next story is from Leafly, who's making all sorts of headlines. Leafly's everywhere. And Americans for Safe Access, which is a great organization. I definitely urge everyone to check out both of these. One's an app and one's an organization, both of these groups. They teamed up to provide an awareness and education campaign that was going to be running in in US Today, the NFL edition. And the awareness campaign is centered on chronic pain, and that 9 in 10 retired players from football suffer chronic pain on a daily basis. And then Leafly comes in with the, cannabis is great for chronic pain. It's really interesting that these two have teamed up and that it's getting national coverage. A few years ago, this never would have been just shared as a factual story. It would have been dreamed about. I remember a few years ago when it got mentioned on NFL of like, oh, it's kind of messed up that some people are prosecuted, other people aren't. It was like headline news, like, oh, they mentioned marijuana prohibition on NFL. And now people are just tying in ads to it because it's just common knowledge, or it should be common knowledge, that marijuana can treat pain. A lot of retired sports players of any sport are in a lot of pain, and it's awesome. I love seeing the progress. Way to go. Speaking of progress, Weed Maps busted out this super awesome announcement that they have an NBC news host, writer, I don't really know, news head, something like that, from NBC is now going to work on marijuana.com, which is owned by Weed Maps. NBC is now going to have someone, a former employee at a marijuana company. Awesome. So awesome. Al Olson, I love the quote he said in this press statement. He says, I've been a journalist for as long as I've been a marijuana advocate. My first byline was at the age of 14, the same age I smoked my first joint, Olson said in a press statement. To me, that really struck a chord because people always want to say marijuana causes these problems and marijuana causes all these deviance in society. But in reality, we find so much of ourselves through cannabis and at the same time that we find cannabis. And it can be really confusing for people to love cannabis and love something else and for their entire life have to keep the two separate. He could have dedicated his advocacy for cannabis and his love of journalism years ago if he was in a safer legal climate. It's just a different world, it's a whole new age, and it's really, really exciting. And I just am excited for people that will no longer have to choose between journalism or marijuana. You can do both. Vlogging or marijuana. You can do both. You could be a teacher and teach about marijuana. You could do a daycare that's something that helps parents go and grow marijuana. There could just be a million options for you no matter what you love to do. You can also love marijuana and support it in some way. It's awesome, and that's what that story means to me personally. The next story is not so good. I think I'm actually going to take a bong hit. Jackie Chan's son has been arrested. I guess he has a reputation for being kind of a playboy and definitely someone that it's not surprising he was found in possession of marijuana, but the results I think are really surprising for a lot of Americans. He is facing a possible 3 years or execution in China. Execution or 3 years. Jackie Chan's son. So there are pros and cons, I would assume, to being of a notorious family in China. They're going to try and make an example of you and show why it's not okay to break the law. But at the same time, hopefully there's a lot of money and influence involved in keeping him safe and not having an execution actually be a result of this charge. It's really, really humbling to be reminded of the realities of other countries. And the reality is I'm a medical marijuana patient in California, and I am very blessed, and I work really hard to be here and enjoy that freedom. So I'm going to just take a bong hit and send all the good luck and thoughts and support towards that story because that is terrifying. I don't always smoke during News Nug. Sometimes I save it towards the end, but for that story, needed it. Next story is from Connecticut, saying that the first medical marijuana dispensary has opened, but there wasn't any cannabis inside. And then in the comments, I learned I might actually be wrong about this story altogether, and that there have been some shops open, but without cannabis as well. And the whole reason is the supply isn't ready for cannabis, but shops in Connecticut have been able to open, register patients, give seminars, get information, have doctors on site, just kind of provide a more comforting welcome than walk in your first time, how do I buy a pot, where do I go? It could be kind of scary, I could imagine. If you are ever scared to visit a dispensary, I have a video that should help you, and maybe it can, I don't know. It's walking you through a dispensary and what you can expect in a Californian dispensary at least. The Connecticut ones may be very different, but hopefully seeing other people walk through dispensaries and get a feel for the process, where you give your paperwork, the next counter, the whole thing, can make people more comfortable with it. But these types of open house seminars, even if there's no cannabis on site, they're still really great. They're awesome. I've never been present for a dispensary's grand opening day one, and generally in California I want to say that they only open once they have cannabis on site, because we don't have that seed to sales slowdown of inventory. We can just intake fresh new cannabis whenever the dispensary wants. In Colorado and now Washington, it's a different world, in Connecticut as well, and every single grower needs to be registered and certified and pass all these tests, and then every single plant needs to be tracked, and so there can't just be some random, if they run out of weed, they pick more up. If the registered and approved people don't have more, there is no more to pick up, and you just gotta wait until the next round is ready. The next story is from Europe, saying that cannabis clubs, the social clubs, not necessarily dispensaries, but they are the next grassroots movement. And I really like this story because the picture was from the UK Cannabis Social Club. It's an awesome group to get involved with if you are out there in the UK. Social clubs provide a sort of freedom, a place for people to go and smoke, enjoy hash or cannabis, but they can't necessarily legally purchase it, not blatantly yet. It's still something that I wouldn't really know how to report on, honestly, because I haven't been to these cannabis social clubs, and I think it's just kind of on the hush-hush for now. But they are blossoming, and there's more than ever over there, possibly. I'm just making up that last part, actually. I can't confirm it's more than ever. But they're a new thing. Things are happening. The next story, a little more facts. A mother, Angela Brown, 38 years old, of Madison, Minnesota, is being charged with possession of a controlled illegal substance, cannabis tincture and oil, and child endangerment. A conviction on both counts would result in 2 years in prison and a $6,000 fine. She was treating her son in a way that she felt right, and while Minnesota does have medical marijuana laws that are coming, I think it's in 2015, they aren't in place yet. And so unfortunately she was breaking her state's law, she was breaking federal law, and she's being arrested. She's being prosecuted. I definitely hope she has a really good lawyer and can get this overturned, or at least in some way, if she already served any time in jail, it can say time served. I don't know, her plea, her quote, was that he was in so much pain. He was in so much pain. And I think any mother can relate to doing anything for their child. It's sad that even when laws are passed, we still have to wait this sometimes horrible length of time before they're in place. That's something that can be changed with the legislation that is passed, so be careful, read the laws carefully, get involved when you can, and make sure that there isn't this horrible gray area where laws are passed but parents still don't have access and patients still can't legally pick up their medicine. Thank you for staying high and watching this week's News Nug. See you later.